Hi, good morning, everyone. Okay, so we have to start with workflows. Now, let me first of all introduce the topic. See, the most, I could say, the most interesting feature of Salesforce CRM is the kind of business automation it have. And that is what it makes a Salesforce CRM, a distinguished one. The one which people usually is very impressed, especially the business. They are very impressed with the kind of automation that Salesforce CRM is having. Because see, every business wanted certain process to be get automated. And there are so many things like of that. I will give you a few examples and we would understand first thing like what is an automation and what is the importance of automations in this. Let's consider there is a small thing like sending an email, maybe to the customers on their birthdays, all right, on their anniversaries, or maybe when some sort of festival is going on in India, like Diwali, Eid, whatever. In US, maybe a Thanksgiving or maybe a Christmas Eve, and you wanted that we should send certain greeting sort of emails to our customer. Now, before business automation, like when there was no certain automated tool for this, and people were using certain different alag, what to say, way to do this. This might involve some human efforts into this. Maybe they would require somebody. Maybe they hire some sort of data engineers for this. They will make a contract with such a kind of company just to send their emails, right? And this was one of the business. I mean, this was one of the business before the CRM would have automated this, before Salesforce CRM has come into the existence. So there were so many different companies that time. You give data to them, you give them usually Excel sheet that this is a person. I mean, we wanted to send them. For example, there were 1 million customers, 1 million customers a particular company is holding. And that company would require to send email on Christmas, on Thanksgiving. So they have to draft it, they have to draft it manually. So it was not possible for them. So what they used to do would be like, they hired somebody to doing this. And there are certain similar kinds of so many different operations. There are certain similar kinds of so many different operations. Whenever you set up a meeting, for example, like these days, everything we are living in a virtual world. So right now it's like you set up a meeting and that meeting usually is online. You have to come to online for that. Even for that as well, even for that as well. You set up a meeting, you would require a different tools for that. That would take care. And now you wanted to send this meeting invite to everybody that, to whom you wanted to attend that the people, those who you want that they should come up onto the meeting. All right. And this could be one of another operation. Then for example, somebody buy a product, all right, somebody buy a product. And when he buy a product, we wanted that certain documentation should be get generated automatically. The first thing would be the customer's profile. Whenever somebody, like if we are a manufacturing organization and somebody would buy our product, which have been manufactured by our unit, and somebody buy a product, becomes our customer. So we wanted a database should be get created where things related to the customer, things related to the products, and some other things like SLA, service level agreements, all the warranties, guarantees, and everything that should be generated. So there was a time even that this effort was also manual. There were so many data entry firms was there. They are still over there, but business is very less because people have started using CRM. Before CRM was getting introduced, there were so many data entry firms, and they used to maintain all these records. They used to keep on behalf of their vendor organization. They used to create all these database. But Salesforce has identified that there are so many things for which there are dependencies of one business onto another business. And all right, there's one more fact over here. See, when you involve humans to do a work, there are limitations of working hours, limitations of especially nobody could work on the night. Now, for example, if you're sitting in, you're running your business in one country, but your customers, they are in different countries, they are in different regions. All right. And you wanted to initiate certain communication, that becomes even a very difficult thing that time, because your time zone is different, their time zone is different. So how to maintain all this? How to put everything streamline, how to put everything on a right way, on a right process. So Salesforce identified this, that there are certain difficulties related to this kind of process. And they come up with a product, they come up with a feature called as business automation tool in Salesforce CRM. Now, as a part of business automation, the first thing what they have introduced was workflow. The first thing what the Salesforce has introduced is workflow. Now, workflow, Salesforce already has announced is going to be decommissioned. They are going to remove this feature very soon. Maybe in some upcoming release, Salesforce has planned to remove the workflows, right? But still, it is over here. As and when it would be removed, we'll also not going to teach that. But right now, because it is here, you have to learn it. So Salesforce has introduced business automation with first tool called as workflow. Now, this workflow, it would serve as a base of business automation. Once you learn this, once you get in clarity about how the business automation work, you would certainly find it a kind of easy thing to go with process builder. And once you learn the process builder, you will find it easy to learn the lightning flows as well. So that is the reason you should start from the workflows. All right. So what is an workflow? First of all, workflow is a business automation tool. Workflow is a business automation tool. Now, in the business, there are so many things for which an automation is required. It should happen 24/7 without any human involvement. I've given few of the examples over here in the notes as well. Now, for example, you go to a bank or maybe an ATM center, you visit over there, you do certain sort of transactions, you withdraw money. Sometimes you even can deposit money. There are cash, what cash deposit machines are there. Like, so you do certain sort of transactions. You deposit a check, or maybe you do. All right. Niall is asking something to you guys. You can reply him on chat. So whenever you perform certain transactions over there, Maybe you withdraw the money, maybe you deposit the money, maybe you do some other sort of banking transactions. We usually receive certain SMS or maybe an email. We have been acknowledged if you withdraw the money, right? They would acknowledge you via an SMS, via an email. Now, what do you think? Is this process is manual process? Is somebody sitting in the bank server and they are monitoring that if this particular customer would do any transaction, I would have to draft him an email. I would have to send him an SMS that, dear customer, you recently has performed this transaction. What do you think? Is this process is a manual process? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And we see somehow we also know, somehow, although we are learning is this maybe for the first time, but then we also have a basic understanding of technology. And we were being agreed to this fact that this process is an automated process. The bank has certain applications, certain tools they are using by which this SMS has been generated, by which this email has been delivered to me. We were agreed to this fact from long back. We just don't know how this has been done. And now because you are going with Salesforce CRM and you are learning how an application development, how a product development goes in Salesforce, this process is called as an automation process, and you are learning this. Although we have seen this kind of things, right? So I could call this technically as an immediate action. I could call this as an immediate action. Now, why I'm calling this as an immediate action? Because the nature of the response is immediate, and it should be immediate. As and when you perform this transaction, you must be acknowledged. You must be acknowledged via maybe a SMS or maybe an email. And this should happen very promptly. This should happen in real time. I mean, not with a long delay. And this should not happen like, if you perform the transaction yesterday, you should receive an SMS by today. That could create a confusion. And maybe you feel that somebody else is accessing my account. He's right now withdrawing the money, maybe. All right. So this kind of response should generated automatically, and this should be generated immediately. So this kind of responses, where you expect something to be happen as the event occurs, as that event was what? Event was a transaction. As you do that transaction, as that particular event occurs, we wanted this response to be generated immediately. And so this type of response, this type of actions, we used to call this as immediate actions. Immediate actions. The second type of action, the second type of automation, what we could require is called as time dependent or scheduled actions. There are certain situations where you wanted a periodic responses. Like, for example, you book up a ticket. You book a ticket, maybe a flight. You book an hotel for you. You book a cab for you. You book a train tickets, right? And there are some good applications, those who take care of this. Like IRCTC, if I remember, IRCTC also follow the same pattern. Make My Trip also follow the same pattern. Ease My Trip, Clear Trip, they follow the same pattern. What is that? At the time of booking, I mean, when you book a ticket, they would give you an email acknowledgement. That's an immediate response. Oh, thank you so much. Congratulations. Your ticket is booked. You are having a confirmed booking with this hotel. You're having confirmed booking with this flight. And then, for example, you are traveling. All right, you are traveling. And maybe you're traveling on, let's say, 10th of this month. So maybe 2 days or 5 days or 3 days or 1 day prior to your journey, they would again give you an SMS. They would again give you an email just to keep you updated on the things, right? Just to keep you updated on your journey. And you feel good. Oh, I mean, this organization, this company is taking care. I mean, they are periodically acknowledging me. They are periodically sending me some SMSs or emails. and they are, I mean, they are acknowledging me, they are reminding me, you feel good about this. Maybe a 5 days before to your journey, a 5 days prior to your journey, 2 days prior to your journey, you are receiving certain SMSs, you are receiving certain emails. So this kind of, and even after your journey, if you complete it with your journey, they would ask you about your feedback. They would ask you about your feedback. So this kind of responses, where which are expected to be delivered periodically, which are expected to be delivered with certain intervals of times, days, months, that are called as time dependent on scheduled actions. All right. So when we talk about automations, when we talk about business automations, and when we talk about the kind of actions it would perform, there are two major categories: immediate and time dependent, or maybe scheduled. Immediate, where the responses are generated as the event occurs. As the event occurs, event could be anything. All right, we're going to talk about that. As the event occurs, if the response is generated even that time only, that kind of response, we used to call this as immediate action. And when we wanted that response should be delayed, rather it should be delivered with some periodical intervals of time, that is that kind of action we used to call this as time dependent or scheduled actions. All right, so this is the first thing that you should have an understanding, because see, either you are learning workflow or a process builder or lightning flows, this is going to be same for all three of them. You would first of all have to decide what kind of action I have to design. Either it's an immediate action or a time dependent or a scheduled or a periodical action. That is the first thing you should have a clarity in mind. Now, coming to this fact that can we design both of them? Answer is yes. Answer is yes. If you are using workflow, you are using process builder, or you are using lightning flow, in all of them, you in a single rule, you can have both of them. You can design an automation, you design a process where it's having both of them. It's having both of them. It's having immediate action as well as time dependent action. It's having immediate response. It would deliver the periodical responses as well. Yes, that is possible. But you must have a clarity, and that is why we are discussing it like this only. All right. Now, chalo. Please go with all of the theoretical things, whatever has been written over here. Please go with all of them. I usually, you must now have understand that I usually don't go line by line. Whenever I take a topic, I explain it in my own way. But there are so many things that has been written into the notes. Please go with them. Spare some time to read the notes as well. You probably is watching the videos and doing your own practice. That is a good thing. That's a good thing. But please spare some time onto the notes as well. And it would be better if you start creating your own notes. Maybe you can type it. That would be a better thing. Don't start writing. Don't create handwritten notes. You are not in a college. You are not in a, because see, you would going to be a part of IT very soon. If you create your notes like this, you start typing, that would even help you out with, that would increase, that would improve your typing speed, all of them, and that is required. So instead of doing that handwritten things, instead of creating your handwritten notes, better would be if you go with certain tools, you create your notes, maybe with tool like Notepad++ or Microsoft Word, whatever you use, that would be a better thing. All right. So, I just wanted to, I just wanted to tell you that don't do the typings. Don't do the handwritten notes, right? you do the typing, that would there would be two benefits. First, you will have a notes that you can carry everywhere. You just put that copy onto email or maybe some Google Drive cloud. You can carry it everywhere. If you wanted to study, you can just open it and you can start studying from the mobiles as well. Second benefit would be like it would improve your typings. It would improve your understanding about some other tools as well, right? Word, PowerPoint, Excel, whatever. All right. So try to create your notes like this, and please go with all these notes. Now let's come to workflow. Workflow is obviously a business automation tool, like your process builder, like your lightning flows. But workflow is a little bit outdated things. I will tell you that we have stopped using this workflow. We have stopped using. But then it doesn't mean you shouldn't learn that. No. We are not using workflow right now. Every automation, what these days we are creating usually with the lightning flows only. But some of the things, because they were being created onto the process builder. So if I wanted to do any modifications, I have to go to with the process builder. I will tell you very honestly that I don't think I did anything onto the workflow in my entire career. But we are learning this because even there is 1% possibility that we might have been asked to work on this. We should have an understanding, all right? And moreover, workflow would give you an clarity about how to design, how to set up the business automation, how to set up certain process to be happen automatically. That is the reason we are learning this. Now see, workflow actually is a combination of two things. Workflow is a combination of two things. Event and action. Workflow is a combination of two things. Events and actions. Workflow is a combination of two things, event and action. Now the actions, if we talk about according to the nature, there are two types: immediate action, time dependent. That is according to the nature, according to the responses. When does a response would get generated? Now, based on this fact, there are two types of actions: immediate action, time dependent. And based on what a workflow can do, what operations, what type of business operations, automations you can design, there are 4 different types of actions. We're going to learn that. But चलो उस पे आते हैं, उसके पहले आप थोड़ा सा ये चीज को गहराई से समझिए. Actions are dependent on events. If the event occur, then and then only action would be get fired. If there is no event, there would not be any action. So actions are completely dependent on events. If the event occurs, then only action would get fired. Otherwise not. So to fire any action, there must be a subsequent event for this. If there is an event, the action would be fired. Tell me, you receive an SMS or maybe an email from a bank. When should this happen? Anytime? No. This should have a dependency. If you do any transaction, then and then only this SMS should have been generated. So I would call this SMS or email as an action. But what is an event? Event is transaction. Event is transaction. I did this transaction. I book a ticket for me. That is an event. That is an event. Transactions, booking a ticket. These are what? These are examples of event. If this event would occur, and due to this event, as a consequences of this event, I am receiving these SMS or email. That are what? These are actions. These are actions. So the first thing is like the event should occur. When event would occur, action is going to be get fired. All right. This is what an workflow is actually. Event, action. Now, when we talk about event, there are three different types of events. Created, and every time it is edited. Created and any time it is edited. But then if it satisfies certain different subsequent criteria. What is that? We're going to learn. Don't worry. There are three types of events: created and every time it is edited. Created and any time it is edited, and it also satisfies certain different conditions. It also satisfies certain different criterias. So there are three different types of actions: created, and every time it is edited. Created and any time it is edited, but meeting the subsequent criteria as well. There are three types of event. Let me try to describe. Let's log in into the Salesforce. And your batch is 208. All right. You go to an object, for example, and then you hit this new button. You enter something. Harry Potter. Price of the book is 500. You go to an object, you press this new button, and as you save it, when you save it, a new record has been created, right? A new record has been created. Now this operation, what you just did, is something called as insertion. You inserted a new record into database table. See, every object, you might remember, I told you that Salesforce follow something called as ORM, object relationship and mapping. Salesforce is built upon object relationship and mapping. So many times we have discussed about this diagram. I told you that what you see is front end, the user interface, and that is tightly coupled with two other things as well. This user interface, the front end part, what you see is tightly integrated with two other things as well. There is a database table for every object. There is a database table for every object inside database.com. And there is a business logic class that is also written, automatically created. This also automatically created, which used to integrate your front end along with the back end. So if I create a new record, I mean, you go to user interface and you enter the details, you hit the save button. What we say, a new record has been created. Now creation is as good as insertion. Why? Because whatever that record what you created would create a one row over here. It would insert a record inside your table. It would insert a record. It would create a new row. So it's one and same thing, by the way. You can say that I just have created a record. You can also say that I just have inserted a record. I just have created a record inside book object. I just have created a record inside book object. Or I just have inserted a record inside book table. That is one and same thing. Objects are tables. Objects is relevant to front-end, tables relevant to database.com. But they are same thing. They represent the same entity. Right? ये एक ही सिक्के के दो पहलू हो सकते हैं. आप दो अलग तरीका से आप ये sentence को बोल सकते हो. You created a record. This is as good as you inserted a record. All right. So when you wanted, for example, I wanted that as and when I create something, I just create something. That time I wanted an automation to be get fired. Only on insertion, only on creation, only on creation, only on insertion. Whenever a new record is created, whenever a new record of any object is inserted, that time I wanted an automation to be get fired. What type of action we're going to talk later. First understand event. Event समझिए अभी आप सभी लोग. So when I wanted that during the creation only, if a new record would be inserted, maybe in candidate, in position, in account, in any object, whenever a new record is being created, inside the object, inside the table, that time if you wanted an automation to be get fired, so we are going to select criteria as created. See what has written. It will fire the workflow once the new record has been created. That means after insert. Whenever a new record has been inserted into database table, the corresponding database table, that time if you wanted an automation to be get fired, we'll select the rule. Events are also called as rules. Evaluation criteria, simple criteria, or sometimes they are also called as a rule. Or maybe sometimes they are also called as conditions, or maybe rule conditions. No problem. There could be so many different names. All of them are referring to same entity. So whenever you wanted that something should happen only on creation of a new record, that time you must select the criteria, the event, the conditions as to be created. The second is created, and every time it is edited. I have created certain records. I wanted that if I create a new record, that time also the automation should get fired. Even though if I open an existing record and I make certain changes over there, I make certain changes over there. That time also, if I wanted, the automation should get fired. If I create a new record, or maybe I did some editing, I did certain updations in the existing record, that time even if I wanted, the automation should get fired. In both of the cases, if I create a new record, that time also it should fire. If I make editing in some certain existing records, that time should also it get fired. I would select the criteria as created and every time it is edited. Now third is created and anytime it is edited, but it should follow. It should match with certain conditions. Let me give you one example for this. Guys, listen this very carefully. All right, complete theory, no practicals at least today. It becomes difficult to understand things with theory. When we do practicals, when we implement that functionality, that time probably it is easy. But when we are learning some with theory, it's really difficult. And it is even difficult for me to also explain the things, because I'm more a software developer and less a teacher. But I try my best to make you aware about the facts. Concentrate on this. Concentrate. And if you are feeling drowsy, go back and have sleep. These are getting recorded, no problem. When you are sitting in class, you should be very fresh. Like created and every time it is edited, but meeting certain conditions as well. If the condition satisfies, fire the automation. If don't satisfy, don't fire the automation. So the action would be going to fire based on the conditions only. So whenever I create a new record, or maybe I perform editing into old record. If I create a new record, if I perform any editing in the existing record, that time it should get fired, but not blindly. Over here it is blind. Over here it is blind. You create a record, you edit a record. It wouldn't check. It would not check for anything. It would just fire the action. I don't wanted this to be get happen. I mean, if you create a record or maybe you edit a record, along with this, I wanted to check for few conditions. If those conditions satisfies, accordingly, I wanted to fire the event. That is something created and any time it is edited, meeting the subsequent criteria. I'll give you one example. I'll give you one example. Maybe with this example, you would understand the third criteria. Let's say there is a bank. There is an organization, a financial organization, a bank. Now, this bank is having 3 different categories of customers. Let's not go into depth, keep it shallow. The bank has 3 different forms of customers. Maybe like a silver customer, a gold customer, and a platinum customer. This might be like how much amount they have deposited in the bank. Accordingly, they have been categorized. All right, don't go in depth. Now, what happens? See, if a silver customer would perform any transaction, if a silver customer, if he performs any transaction, maybe he deposited a money, he withdraw a money, whatever, bank would not acknowledgement anything to him. No, because you are a silver customer. You will not going to receive any SMS or any email. All right, because you are a silver customer. Whenever a gold customer would perform any transaction, bank would give him an SMS. Because you are a gold customer, you would be going to acknowledge, but with an SMS only, with an SMS. There would be no email. And whenever a platinum customer, let's say, would perform any transaction, bank have a policy that we should acknowledge him. We should also give him SMS. We should also give him email. So he would going to receive both of them. Why? Because he's a platinum customer. Now see, if a new record has been created or maybe updated, but that is performed, let's consider this as a transaction, creation or editing. Let's consider this as transaction. So if the transaction has been performed, but I have to check, I have a certain conditions to be get checked. It is not just about creation and editing. No, I also have to check what is the type of customer. That means I have certain conditions to be get checked. If a new record is created or if an existing record is edited, let's consider the situation as transaction. All right, let's call this as transaction. Let's call this as transaction. So if a transaction has performed, I also have to check for some other conditions. What is the type of customer that performed this transaction? If the customer type is silver, don't acknowledge anything. If the customer type is gold, deliver one SMS to him about this transaction. If the customer type is gold, platinum, sorry, then you should give him an email as well as an SMS. So the action based on this criteria. Action, what type of action should get fired? Or even though action should get fired or not, that depends on criteria. And what is the criteria over here in this example? Type of customer. Based on type of customer, we are firing the action or even not firing the action. So when this has to be implemented this way, then we go with third criteria, created and anytime it is edited, but it should then meet certain conditions. If those conditions would match, then and then only action would fire, otherwise not. Right? So these are 3 different types of events. The next to this is based on like what an operation could be performed with the workflow. Based on that, there are 4 types of action. Based on the nature of response, there are 2: immediate action, time dependent actions. But based on what a workflow could do, based on the type of functionalities you would achieve with workflow, based on the operations, based on what a workflow can do, there are 4 different types of actions. Email alert, you could send an email automatically. Field update. You can update the fields of certain object. Assigning a new task. You can assign a new task to a particular user. And sending the outbound messages. Now, sending of outbound messages is outdated again, because that uses XML and a SOAP-based system. XML have been replaced by JSON. SOAP has been replaced by RESTful APIs. So now what we do is integration. We don't fire outbound messages. So this is absolutely omitted. All right, but I will tell you how to send this. I mean, I'll make you aware about this as well. So these are the 4 different types of actions what you could achieve with workflows. You could send an email alert. You could update a field one by one. We're going to see this and this as well. How to assign a task. What does it mean by a task? What is task? What is event? What is the activity feature of Salesforce? We were going to learn all of them. But sending of the outbound messages, this is not essentially important to learn, but I would give you an idea just to have a little knowledge about this. All right, I'll give you an idea about this as well. Don't worry. So these are based on what operation could be done with the workflows, what type of functionalities could be achieved with the workflow. There are 4 things. You could send an email, you could update a field, you could assign a task, you could send an outbound messages, right? We're going to cover 3 of them in detail. One would be just an introduction, the last one. Now, about these governor limits. On a single object, you could have 500 workflow rules, but that doesn't mean all 500 would be in active state. Actually, 50 should always be active. 50 can only be active. I would tell you कि ये मैं लूंगा इसको, मतलब अभी तो मैं सिर्फ ऐसे समझा रहा हूँ, but मैं जब इसको practically लूंगा, I'm going to talk about every governor limit. But at least एक बार हम देख लेते हैं. Inside an organization, we could maximum have 2000 active workflow rules, not more than that. Workflow could have 40 immediate actions. Workflow could have 10 time dependent actions, 10 time triggers. Workflow could have 400 time dependent actions. How come this everything is coming up? Don't worry about this. I'm going to explain you everything in detail. All right. By using a workflow, you could send 15 email notification maximum in 24 hours, not more than that. In unlimited, you can send 2000 emails in 24-hour frame. This everything we would going to discuss once again, but in real time. All right. So by tomorrow, I'm going to start with the first example. That's all for today. Any questions?
So, आप बोल रहे हैं कि वर्कफ्लो जो है वो अभी मतलब आगे जाके यूज में नहीं होता या फिर आएगा नहीं, और अभी वो कोई यूज नहीं कर रहा, तो उसके अलावा और कुछ ऐसा ऑटोमेशन होता है क्या कि इससे रिलेटेड मतलब वर्कफ्लो नहीं कर सकते, तो दूसरा कुछ ऐसा ऑप्शन है क्या? क्योंकि ये जो रहेगा ये तो हमेशा के लिए प्रोसेस है ना, कि किसी ने ऐड किया है तो आना चाहिए, किसी ने एडिट किया तो वो मेल आना चाहिए या फिर कुछ भी नोटिफिकेशन आना चाहिए, वो सब।
आप शायद मुझे ध्यान से नहीं सुन रहे हैं, मैं वही बात कह रहा हूँ. There are 3 different types of business automation tools: workflows, process builder, lightning flows. और मैंने आज के लेक्चर में एक बात कही कि we are now mostly using lightning flows, but there are few of the things which already have been developed. For that we are using process builder. But in my whole career till now, I haven't used workflow. ये मैंने आज कहा है. So basically, अगर workflow जा रहा है, तो इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि बिजनेस ऑटोमेशन ही खत्म हो रहा है सेल्सफोर्स सीआरएम से. नहीं, वी आर हैविंग द मोस्ट एडवांस्ड टूल, और ऐसा ऑटोमेशन आज तक किसी दूसरे टूल में नहीं है. ऐसी चीजें हैं, but with the lightning flow. So there are 3 different business automation tools right now, rather 4, but one is coding. 3 different अलग अलग बिजनेस ऑटोमेशन टूल्स हैं. वर्कफ्लो, उसके बाद है प्रोसेस बिल्डर, उसके बाद है लाइटनिंग फ्लो. ये तीनों नॉन कोडिंग वाले हैं, और अगर आप कोडिंग पे जाते हो तो यू कुड अचीव दिस विथ एपेक्स ट्रिगर्स. So with the triggers also, you could design the business automation. With the email programmings also, we could design the business automations, right? 3 है नॉन कोडिंग वाले. वर्कफ्लो आउटडेटेड हो रहा है. प्रोसेस बिल्डर अभी भी चल रहा है. फ्लोस तो फ्यूचर है. फ्लोस तो हर कोई यूज करता है.
तो सर एक छोटा सा क्वेश्चन था, क्रिएटेड एवरी टाइम इज एडिटेड, क्रिएटेड एंड एवरी टाइम इज एडिटेड में एक पॉइंट आपने नोट्स में लिखा हुआ है, कैन नॉट बी यूज्ड फॉर टाइम डिपेंडेंट एक्शंस.
I'll come to
थोड़ा
this.
सा अगर आप.
I'll
श्योर
come
सर,
to this.
श्योर सर,
आऊंगा मैं.
थैंक यू सर.
But that's a good catch. I'll come to this, don't worry. Yes, any other questions, guys? All right then.